Welcome, everyone. I'm Heather Bradley, the Director of the Center for Nonprofit Resources, if we haven't had a chance yet to meet. I'm so excited that you could join us for this intensive around storytelling. Intensives are a new strategy that we tried to deploy early in 2020. Here we are finally in the fall being able to do it. And the concept of the intensives is to help you to be able to take the information and the tools that you've learned from a speaker on a specific topic, but then really dive deep into how you apply that to your particular organization. So not enough just to learn about the concept or the tools, but to actually put them in practice. I'm delighted that Zach Huber, the grant specialist from Toledo Lucas County Library, will be leading this session today. Before I turn this over to Zach, let me first just remind you that if you want to continue in this track, because we also stacked up the learning through 2020. One of the tracks was around the fundraising and particularly the messaging. When we collected input from nonprofits last fall, the top 3 things that you told us that you wanted to have more opportunities to strengthen your skills and competencies were: number 1, fundraising; number 2, arguably the flip side of the same coin, marketing and communications; and then board governance. So there is another board governance series coming up here just in a few weeks starting. But Tom Ahern, who is really been described as a guru in the donor world, will be joining us for a couple of sessions, and then he's going to lead the intensive. So if you're interested in that, I would encourage you to get registered. I mean, there are a lot of people registered for that already. Hopefully you're enjoying the fact that these are no cost due to the generosity of the Greater Toledo Community Foundation for the remainder of 2020. That's part of their way of contributing and investing back into the community. And also the fact that they are now on Zoom. And I know people are all sick of Zoom, but for the people who are outside the Greater Toledo area who oftentimes either don't have the time or the funds or the transportation to get into a live session, this certainly has eliminated travel and geography as a barrier for all of you. I'm going to talk about some other things that are coming up and exciting and available through the library at the end of the session, but Zach, I'm going to turn that over to you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Heather. Hi, everyone. I see some familiar names on there, so I'm excited to welcome all of you to the storytelling intensive we've got going on here. I did just want to kind of give everyone a little bit of a warning. I am in the public library, so who knows what can happen sometimes. You might hear some things in the background. So every half hour, we have a message that goes off telling us all to wash our hands. So I tried to find a space that wasn't quite close to a speaker, so hopefully that doesn't bother us too much, so you might hear that. But again, who knows what happens. So if you ever see anything distracting, I apologize in advance. But I'm excited to get started. I do want to encourage you to take advantage of the chat throughout this webinar. The first part is going to be very interactive. So if no one's interacting with me, then there'll be a lot of silence, and then I will just talk over you anyway. So please use the chat. If you prefer, if you have something longer form and you want to be unmuted, we can do that too. You should be able to raise your hand over there off to the side, and then that will kind of show me that you want to use your microphone. So either one's fine with me, but I just wanted to encourage you to be active here. Let me share my screen and pull up my PowerPoint.
So while you're doing that, Zach, I was negligent in reminding people we are in the webinar format. And the Q&A box is the best way to put specific questions in, because I'll be monitoring those for Zach as he goes along. And then the chat box, of course, if you want to chat or crosstalk or share resources, we found that really useful. If people had something they want to share and you just want to copy a quick URL in there. So if you want Zach to respond to a question, please enter it in the Q&A box.
Heather, and this is always a grand experiment. It does say I have disabled screen sharing. I don't know if you can do that through here.
Because you're a panelist, so stand by, everybody.
I did also want to mention that we had the opportunity for you to submit some of the things that you've been working on ahead of time. But if any of you didn't get to take advantage of that and you want us to look at your stories or some of your collateral that you've been using in your organization, just submit that in the chat or drop a file in and we can take a look at that. I'm more than happy to. We didn't have too many submissions, so I do have some external examples to review today. But if you are confident and you just want to go for it, we won't have much time to look over it in advance because we'll do it live, but I'm happy to review anything that you want to submit today.
Zach, that should work for you now.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, so what we'll go over today, we'll start with those storytelling examples. The style will be, I'll give you all a minute to look over them. I really want your feedback on them. So you'll have the chance to submit, and then I'll read some of the things that you have submitted, and then I will kind of go over some of the things I have on my end for those. Same thing for the class submissions as well. Same format. So again, I'm going to keep harping on it. Please be active in the chat. And then we'll take a break there in the middle and then kind of talk about what the next steps look like for you and the stories that you've created and how you want to use those. And then some recommended tools and resources, because you can't talk to a librarian without having those thrown in there. So we'll get started on our very first example here. And I just found some examples of organizations that I know. I'm from Hancock County. I live in Findlay. I worked in Findlay. So there's a couple in there. And then I found maybe a couple national examples. Nothing is inherently good or inherently bad. So we'll just want to talk about what you like, what you think could be improved upon. So let's get started with the first one. The first one is actually going to be Hancock Literacy, which is a literacy organization in Hancock County. So I'm actually just going to give you a minute or two to read over that. And if you would like to submit some of your ideas for this story in the chat. Like I said, we're not here to say, oh, this is wrong, this isn't how you do it, but I just want to know what your opinion is on how you think they presented their story to a potential donor. Okay, we got a couple coming in now, so I can start talking about some of those. So Tiffany says, could the opening be warmed up by focusing on how difficult functionality literacy makes everyday life difficult? That is a fantastic example. It is kind of just like a cold open, it just hits you with those facts. It starts out with a number, 8% of Hancock County or 4,000 adults are functionally illiterate. So that doesn't really grab your emotion or your attention. It just kind of shows you this number that may or may not mean something to you. I mean, how many people live in Hancock County? Is 4,000 adults a lot? What is 8%? Is that also 4,000? So very, very good point. Marvin says, limited information about the organization, its mission, vision, and process. That's also very true. So they kind of talk about what their goal is here to help illiteracy, whether that's in adults or in children. And then they sort of just go into the ask for the donations. So they don't really give you a lot of story to go off of. So I think that my personal feel on this one is that 4,000 is a scary number. And when it comes to storytelling, and Rachel really alluded to this, you kind of want to stay away from those numbers, or you want to make them seem less frightening. So what's 4,000 adults mean? How many could that be if you were to express it in terms of one? So 1 in every so many adults are functionally illiterate. Just being in Hancock County, I think that there are 75,000 people. So, math. One in every, let's say that's like 12 or 15 adults are functionally illiterate. So that's kind of more approachable for a donor. I might be able to help that one, but how am I going to be able to help 4,000 people? I don't have that kind of money to give you. So I think that spinning that statistic, you don't have to get rid of it, but just kind of morphing it a little bit helps. So let's keep going on the rest of this. So Hancock Literacy is supported 100% through donations, community support, and grants. Every penny stays right here in Hancock County. Please consider making a donation today to help support our mission to coordinate and support community initiatives that promote lifelong literacy. To me, that sounds a little jargony. I don't think I would use support community initiatives, promote lifelong literacy, that's okay. I mean, that's their mission. But that doesn't really fill me with emotions to donate. I don't see what the obstacle is. I don't think this really passes the U test either. I don't really see them reaching out to me as a donor to say that I'm the vital support system that's going to make this happen. So I think that this one could be morphed a little bit to say, illiteracy, what does that mean? If we have a literacy that prevents people from getting jobs, maybe that's something that I care about as a donor. Just really creating a story, maybe focusing on an individual that went through their program who was illiterate and then worked on their skills and was able to get a better job and support their family. That kind of story would really grab me a little bit more. And then I think that they could also add a better call to action instead of just donate now. Instead of donate now, maybe it would be, help our whether it's, I think they should segment it honestly, whether it's children or adults, help our adults read or help so-and-so get a better job. I think that would pull me in a little bit more rather than just statistics and recapitulating their mission. It's just kind of formal language, I would say. So let's try the other one here. So this one I pulled from the Wilds. I don't know if you're familiar with the Wilds. This is an organization that I personally love, so I'm a little biased. And actually, I want to take a step back here and really address websites for nonprofits. It was very hard to find good examples to use online because I think a lot of us feel that that's really just a transactional space where we don't want to put the story in there under the donate button. So you kind of maybe expect your donors to just hit donate and they just want the form to fill out, how much they want to donate, credit card information. It's just very transactional. I really want to encourage everyone to consider that experience from a customer standpoint or a donor standpoint. If I click on give, that doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to give to you right away. It'd still be nice to see that story that you have to share to really make me feel like a part of your organization or that my donation is going to make a difference. Because I don't know where else you would put it. Your website is overall telling the story. You could put it on your homepage, but a lot of things are going on your homepage. So I think that really remembering to put that story on your give page is really important for a donor to see. So I'll give you a minute to read this one from the Wilds. It's also another short one, and start adding those to the chat, some of your ideas and opinions on this one. I think we have a sleepy group today. Thank you, Melissa. So she says, all of the thank yous detract from the ask and the ask is buried. That is a very valid point. So and it's interesting that they are making such an effort to thank their donor before they've donated, rather than saving that for the acknowledgement after the donation is made. So what I did like about this one is kind of, it follows the formula a little bit, but you're right, there's a little bit extra going on. So when they say your gifts to the wilds are more important than ever as we continue to advance conservation through science, education, and personal experience, I like that they're putting the donor in that. They're the donor's gifts. When you give to the wilds, you join a community of people who are passionate about wildlife and wild places. So if I'm looking at this, and I mean, I'm on the website, so I would assume that I'm passionate about wildlife and wild places. I like that they called me out and they're including me in their plan. I mean, there still isn't much of a story going on here. And there really wasn't a place on their website that had that story. It's difficult, I think, when you kind of use your entire website to tell the story rather than actually explicitly saying something. I mean, just my own interactions with the wilds, they've done so much for animal conservation. They've saved actual species from being on the brink of extinction. So I don't know why they wouldn't want to tell that story to me. There's so many obstacles I'm sure they're facing, whether that's environmental or poaching or things like that for the animals that they serve. But that's not really coming through to me here. They did do a good job including me as a donor in this. So that was a really kind of a mixed piece, I think, that they did a good job on some, but maybe could have brought in more emotion into this. Anybody else have anything to add? No? Okay. So this one's the Audubon Society. I like this one because it actually has 3 different obstacles as Rachel would define them. And it's a little, normally I think I would discourage something like that. Oh, I missed one from Tiffany. Tiffany said on the last example, it doesn't necessarily spell out what the giving is going to. Let me flip that back here. You're exactly right. I don't know what my gift is going to actually do for their organization. Is it going to just buy food for the animals? Am I going to be able to buy an exotic animal that's going to live there at the wilds? I'm not quite sure what my donation is going to go to. So for this one, take a look at this one. Let me know what you think about having 3 obstacles listed. So they have climate change, federal agenda, and development and drilling. And then below that is when they speak to the donor about what their gift can do.
So while they're thinking about that, Zach, we have a question.
Mm-hmm.
We're working on our annual appeal letter. I know Zach mentioned we can still send samples for review. How should I send it?
So if you have an actual file, you should be able to attach a file, I think, in the chat. Let me see if that's true. I don't see that option on here.
Can I send it to your
yes.
Your email?
Let me type my email into the chat here. You just want to send it to me, and then I will pull it up on here, and we'll share it that way. Should be zachary.huber@toledolibrary.org. Thank you, Melissa. I look forward to sharing that with everybody. All right, anybody with the Audubon? Come on, my sleepy people. Okay, so for this one, here's one that came in. Melissa says she doesn't see it in the chat, so I will actually just send it directly to her.
So Zach, when you're in the chat box, it gives you a pull down. It says all panelists and attendees. So just make sure that you've selected all attendees so everyone can see the response.
So that goes to all panelists and attendees there. So hopefully you can get it now. Okay, so for the Audubon Society, we have from Tiffany. I like that they spell out what they do, but not in a long-winded way. I mean, that's very true. I mean, I appreciate that they're not just focusing on one thing, because I don't think that really affects segmentation here. I think someone who's going to donate to the Audubon Society, they don't just care about one of those three pieces. They're going to care about all three of those. So I think including all of them really makes me realize all of the obstacles that they're facing for the one mission that they do have. Denise says, the images are nice, but the info is quite busy. So for that, I'm not quite sure what you mean with being busy. Do you mean the fact that they have it split out in a certain way, or is it because they have some things bolded or blocked weird? I'm not sure with that one. Which part of the info is too busy? And Tiffany said, oh.
I'm not a pro like you. Hi, I just was looking at it and I thought, this is a lot to look at, but you're the guy who knows it and you were asking for comments, so I just contributed that.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. I just didn't know which part you were talking about. You certainly could be valid in saying it's busy. I just wanted to know which section you were kind of looking at there.
Just overall, there's just a lot of different colors and there's a photo and then there's, it just is. To me, it's just busy, but who doesn't love the Audubon Society?
Right. So. No, I definitely get what you're saying then, and I did cut off part of this image here, the hummingbird. I almost said butterfly. It is a morning, isn't it? The butterfly I said it again. The hummingbird is a little cut off there. So the design, it goes off to the page a little bit more, but you're right. There is. When you really look at the images, what am I looking at? There are three images that are they weighting them equal? So I do get that where does the eye need to go here? That's a very valid point. Tiffany says, I also like the graphics, it sets a tone. Definitely, and that's not always an option for everybody. We all don't have graphic designers on staff, so it's nice when you can get them, but sometimes we'll just have to rely on those stock images. And we have Anastasia, I like the pictures to accompany the text, definitely. An image is worth 1,000 words, that we've heard time and time again. So if I just saw those 3 blocks of text, I certainly wouldn't feel much for that. Having the pictures accompany them really helps. Especially, I think when they mentioned the federal agenda, I think that's a little political. And when I was reading this, I was like, oh yeah, climate change. Okay, I get that. Oh, the federal agenda. I don't know if that would offend some of your donors or not, but they're right. I mean, legislation does affect conservation, so it's valid. And then development and drilling. And that picture, I think I really like. I mean, you can see just right there the impact of that in that little image. And then we have from Denise, it seems like a lot to read. Well, you're probably explaining what you're saying there. It does seem like a lot to read. And then from Natalie, I'm more of a visual person, so for me, this is helpful. And it grabs my attention, and I can find out more if I'd like. That's a great point, especially online. And I would actually say I kind of fall into line with that, Natalie. When I'm online, for some reason, my brain can only read for about a minute, and then I just don't want to anymore. So I think having the images and maybe blocks and minimal text really help me get the picture. If there was a long paragraph here, I would probably tune out at some point. And I don't know if that applies for a lot of you, but for me, I don't even like to read news articles for very long. I try to get the gist and then move on. It's just that format. And I'm a Kindle reader. I love reading on a Kindle, so I'm not quite sure what it is about internet text that really drives me wild, but I just can't focus on it for too long. All right, so let's jump to the next one. Good suggestions, everybody.
Zach, I'm going to make an assumption that each of those 3 images are hyperlinked to more information.
Actually, I don't believe that they are. When I was clicking on here, of those 3, you'd think that the bolded words would lead you somewhere else, but I think they just really wanted to bold those to make them stand out. I wasn't able to click on any of them.
It would seem to me that's a missed opportunity, because
absolutely. I mean, you're on the web.
Assuming that they have a lot to say about each of those 3. So if they were hyperlinked, this would be very efficient for me when I visit the site. Because then I could just, like, to try and get all the cases made for all three aspects of this would just be unwieldy. It would be confusing, it would be overload for me. So I like the way that they presented it. Where I find the inconsistency is it would seem in the icons, it's a certain class of bird and then a hummingbird, which I love, but there seemed to be some inconsistency in the imagery itself.
I agree. And that's true. If they were able to hyperlink this, maybe I don't care about one of those three things as much. I mean, as I mentioned, just speaking about the federal agenda made me feel a little weird. Like, oh, I don't really want to give to anybody who's super political right now. So maybe I'm more interested on the other two, and I could click on those and learn about their efforts there. So that's a great point. Mandy said, I like the overall look, but I keep getting drawn to guts under federal agenda. That's not a great breaking point. I mean, the eye definitely has separation between the federal agenda and then it just starts with guts. So maybe they could have chosen a different word there. I probably would have pulled in, again, just like the wilds. I mean, this is a conservation group for animals. There's probably also another way to pull me in with emotion that I don't think that they explored. Climate change, the federal agenda, and development and drilling, I think because they did focus on three, they really didn't kind of develop a story around any of them. So it's a little light fluff. I think that they're kind of hoping we already know a lot about those three things. But I think maybe if they had chosen one, they probably could have developed a more emotional story. Although maybe people don't really get emotional about birds, but maybe some of us do.
It may have got cut off, but was there a call to action on the site?
There was a call to action right below this. I believe I just cut it off because that's next example. I believe I cut it off because it just said donate. So they could have also used a better call to action had I had it on here. All right, so this next one, I'm gonna be really honest about this one. So this is for an organization that I used to work for, and I decided to include it because I think that we as nonprofits really like to be stat heavy. And I was in the marketing role back then, so you think I would have fought harder on this, but generally a lot of the copy was made for my executive director because it made her more comfortable in the meetings that she was with donors. So that makes sense, but I want to encourage those of you who are writing to kind of fight for that story that you're working on, because it's so easy for us to just throw out these numbers. I'll give you a minute to read through this, but just know that this is a lot, and I'm taking my own blame in that as well. This organization actually merged with another one in Findlay and does not exist as a separate organization at this time. They've merged with the Marathon Performing Arts Center. So take a look at this for a minute. Let me know what you think. I have my own opinions about my own work, so and I can take it. So I've been in journalism, I've been marketing, I can handle any critique you have to throw out. Oh, and the call to action, so this is for sponsorship. This is actually a 2-pager. It was a front and back. So below this, it really was just giving levels, if that helps kind of frame this. There was not actually a good call to action. It was just this intro and then the giving levels and what you would receive with that for the full 2 pages. And as well as images. Carol says that I would have liked to see some photos of the programs included on this piece. And I think that that's great. Right off the bat, I mean, if you're going to include stats, you got to have a face, especially so this organization served the youth, as you can see. And what's better than a cute kid doing some of the work that you're asking money for? So right off the bat, I think if you're going to have stats, you at least need to have some photos to create some sort of story. Tiffany says it's a lot of stats and it doesn't engage emotionally. Very, very true. The whole second half is just stats. And I think being from the organization at the time, one thing that we struggled with was that we did such a variety of things that we couldn't focus on it. And that's not good for us. It's not good for our donors. So let this be a testament to really how important it is to focus on maybe one piece and segment that rather than everything. So I mean, we as an organization, we did youth programs, we did school day programs, we did professional development, we had fundraisers that were community events. So we just didn't know how to ask for money at that time for just one thing, or we were just too afraid of spurring a donor away who could have given to one thing. So we asked for all things. And that is, I hope from the other two sessions, if you attended one or two of them, that you really learned that that's not where we want to go anymore. We don't want to tell everything and word vomit everything that we do to someone. We want this cohesive story to just bring people in and let them see the good work that we're doing, but not overwhelm them. So like what I mentioned earlier with the Hancock Literacy was, what do these numbers even mean? So we served more than 17,500 students and adults last year. How? What does that mean? How did you serve them? 46% more. Okay, that's great. You served more adults, but how did you serve more adults? What did you do? We've got 680 students who are immersed in our arts through youth theater. How many students does that actually mean? I can't help all of these people as their donor. I can't give you enough money. I just adding these up, it's probably like 30 to 40,000 people you're claiming you serve. So I don't know how to help you as a donor. And Tiffany said, I struggle with that too. I want to highlight all of the things. Well, that's a very common problem, Tiffany. And I think, I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in with some of the organizations that they've been a part of that kind of help narrow that in. But it's difficult, and it's all about segmentation when you get to that point. If you have so much that's so different, then I would say do your best to reach out to your donors and see what their interests are, and then try to segment to them. I can guarantee you that we probably had donors. So this was for business. I guarantee you that our business donors were more interested in the big fundraising events that got their name on the sponsorship than maybe a program of area seniors where they're writing memoirs and creative writing. That's who these people were. But I'm sure some of our individual donors who were maybe a little older or had friends that go to the senior center or go there themselves would actually care, and maybe they would have donated $30 to that or $50 or $100 to that. So that goes back to what Rachel was saying about segmentation. It is hard to tell all of your stories, so find the right way to tell one of your stories. It does take a lot of work, though. You have to collect those and have them ready at hand to pull out whenever it's the right time. Okay, so this next one is actually our first submission. This is from the Kidney Donor Conversation group. I believe that was actually Glenna. Glenna, I see you on there. So I'm gonna give everyone a minute to look over this. I decided to include everything that you submitted just because it's nice to see that breakdown, and I really like to look at the framework that you used from Rachel, but the story is at the bottom there. I made it a little bit easier for you to read. So take a moment to look this over. And Glenna, feel free, if you want to chime in at any point to talk about your work, we can unmute you as well.
Okay, Glenna, you are unmuted.
Okay, the first thing I want to talk about, I'll just go to that second framework you have with the vision, enemy, hero, and recipient. So vision, everyone has one healthy kidney. That would be a great world where we lived in, where people weren't struggling and dying of kidney disease. So great vision, very clear to me. Your enemy, there aren't enough kidney donors, so most people who need a kidney will die waiting. Very clear as well. It really draws me in. I don't want anyone to have to die from this. Hero, compassionate people who care about finding more living kidney donors. That is fantastic. I think I could jump in on that and help you try to find living kidney donors as well. And then your recipient is 95,000 people on the kidney transplant waiting list. So the only one thing that I would have to say about that personally is that 95,000 can be a scary number. And so I would be interested in seeing what that might be, to say maybe 1 in so many people on the waiting list die from that, rather than getting that 95,000, because I don't have 95,000 kidneys to give.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. We have used the how many people die on the waiting list before, but so I appreciate that feedback.
You can certainly use the 95,000. I think it's great to have thrown in there, but I think that just for your such a short call to action, 95,000 might scare someone away, and it might be easier for them to think about helping the one versus the group. And then for the story, I haven't seen any come in yet on the story, so I'll just read it here. It's really quick. We believe everyone deserves one healthy kidney. Let me tell you about Patty. She had no knowledge of kidney donation until she spoke with us. Our education and support inspired her to donate her kidney to Doug. She's back to running 5Ks, and Doug is off dialysis and is now able to travel and take vacations with his wife and children. Will you say yes to helping more people like Doug? So I think that's great, having Doug and Patty in there, because they're both very important parts of the story. But I think what I would do to kind of like really bring the donor in. So you start with Patty, and Patty is, I think, what's important here, because that's who you want as your organization. But for the donor, I think you might want to start with Doug, because Doug's story might be more interesting to me. I want to know like what's going on with Doug. So is he on the waiting list to get a kidney, and he's really limited in everything that he can do because of that? And then introduce the hero, Patty, and what she did to donate her kidney, especially because your call to action is for Doug. So I might want to start with him first.
Yeah, I will say that that's a constant struggle for us, because our target audience can confuse ourselves. We want to help those on the waiting list that are on dialysis or waiting for a kidney, but we want to educate the general public about living kidney donation so that we can find more people who are curious about donating. So that's literally a constant battle we have, is who is our focus. So this is really the first time I've heard anyone really emphasize or encourage us to talk more about the recipient story.
And that's a really good point. So I guess I also wanted to ask, for you, when you talk about what you're trying to bring in as an organization, are you truly looking for money donors? Are you looking for organ donors? Are you just looking for volunteers to spread the word as well? What are you? All of them?
Right, exactly. Exactly, yes.
So
that is, for 2 years, that's been our struggle, is who are we speaking to, and how do we narrow it? And it's been really, really challenging.
Gotcha. Well, I saw that Heather did bring up, how would I go about segmenting? And so this is a great question that I can tie into this. So I think that you're going to probably have to craft a few different stories to have on hand, but they can be the same story. So for a donor, let's say that we want to focus on Doug, because I want to know about Doug's struggle, and for lack of better terms, I want to know that he might die. He if we don't get a kidney to him, it's not going to go well, and so that would really bring me in as a donor. But it's great to know that people like Patty exist, and so I want to give you money so you can find more Pattys. So I think that you can use the story that way. And get that out to the general population to let them know about that. But similarly, you could also recraft the same group of people in the story and say that you can pull in that fact that you have about how many people are on the waiting list. And your obstacle would be how many people die while they're waiting. And so the hero then would be Patty, and how she was able to find out about kidney donation through your organization to save somebody. So, and you might not even need to mention Doug in that instance. So I think for you, the challenge actually is going to be you have the pieces of the story, but finding a way to segment, and that's what I kind of want to think about here for a second is everybody can be everything, but how do you decide who's going to be in certain segments? Have you done anything like that before where you know these people are likely to be donors and these people might be more on like the kidney donation side?
No, because we think people who have a connection to kidney disease, care about us more.
Sure.
So might be financial donors, and that's always confusing too. Because when you say donors, like, are you talking about the money or the kidneys?
True.
So, right.
I should be more specific.
So it isn't clear. It isn't real clear to us though who wants to support us.
Sure.
In general, no one cares about donating a kidney. Like people don't just come up and say, "Oh, I want to donate my kidney. Tell me how to do this." We are pushing the topic, and the whole reason we did the nonprofit is because no one's talking about living kidney donation. So no one's asking for us. No one's looking at the cute puppy and saying, "Oh, let me help you." No one's, even cancer, cancer is like pulls the heartstrings. Kidney disease is not sexy. It's not something people typically care much about. So it's a challenge finding the people who do care, and then who wants to give a donate a kidney. That's like a mystery of how do you find these altruistic people out in the general population. Well, we don't know who they are, so we have to talk to lots and lots of people. And even then, it's not like they're going to raise their hand like Patty did and say, they may have to think about it for years until, like we're planting seeds for people. We don't get an immediate return on our investment at all. So
that's a great way to put
very,
it.
very, very strange to measure our success. All we could measure is the people we talk to. We do presentations and education, but it's been tough. I'll be honest with you. It's been really tough as a nonprofit to find our niche and who cares about it.
Yeah, and I think that almost you might want to operate kind of as planned giving. I don't know if you know much about planned giving on the donor side of things, but those seeds take on average 7 years to plant. So you let people know about giving a planned gift, and every average 7 years is when you might get that planned gift. So I feel like that almost is kind of similar to kidney donation. You just really want people to know about it. And then hope that when the opportunity arises, if they're asked from a family member or they see the opportunity, that they might enact upon it. So I think what would really help is just defining some clear channels. So maybe you really focus on the story about the donor, the organ donor. Let me keep that specific, and have those maybe in specific locations. So maybe you have like a pamphlet that you share with all of your partner organizations or send to doctors' offices so that people in the waiting room can take a look at this and just start planting those seeds, and those information go out via one channel, and then everything else that's more general about you, maybe your website, if you have social media, those kinds of things, that's maybe where you want to focus on financial donations. So I think a clear-cut channel divide might help you here. But you should always put on pretty much everything you do an option to donate. Even if it's not the focus of your piece, even if it's just about organ donation, at the bottom, make sure that you put that you accept donations, because you don't want to lose out on someone knowing that you're a nonprofit still.
Thank you. This is actually really helpful. We really haven't gone the paper route with pamphlets yet, but it does make sense to have. And again, we're not local. We're mostly virtual, so we're not talking about just Northwest Ohio. But to have something available that others could print out could be an option that we haven't looked at yet.
Sure, and I think that would be good for that piece, because like you said, it takes a while for someone to decide to become that donor, And so having that printed piece to take home would, I think, help you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Just taking a quick look at the rest of the chat here. People agreeing, to create different stories, to target outcomes. Heather mentioned, what's your core mission? Is it to increase the number of donors? So we kind of touched on that. So I think if you really focus on defining your channels and how you can treat each of those differently, I think that might kind of start your path out for success there.
Thanks.
And thank you for sharing this. It takes a little bit of bravery to share this in front of everyone, so I appreciate it. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, so this is a little bit longer story. It is it's true storytelling, I think. So nobody wants to be read at, so I'm going to give you a couple minutes to look this over. And while you read it, I'm actually going to go ahead to my email and pull up Melissa's piece that she emailed me. So go ahead, take a look, start sending your comments in the chat there. So this is Awakening Minds Art in Findlay, which, as I mentioned, I work for the Arts Partnership, so I know your organization really well. I have another one in here from Sue Berryman as well, so I'll do that. But I just wanted to mention, Melissa, I see that you didn't do a storytelling template. That's okay. We're still going to review it. It's for any collateral that you might have, so we'll still look at it.
You can also bring up websites if you provide Zach with a URL.
You put that in the chat, we can always bring it up too. We're just kind of here to review some of your stories with the framework that Rachel brought up in the last two sessions. So happy to look at anything with the group that you want to show us.
It's also to help you get set and prepared if you choose to participate with Tom Ahern, because those of you who participated in these sessions are going to be way ahead of people who didn't, because he's going to show you how to use these types of stories and information and promo pieces as you talk to donors.
Okay, so for this one, I know it was a little long, so if you need to keep on reading, go ahead, but I have some of my comments prepared already, so I'll go ahead and start with that. I don't want to take too much of your time with that. I thought this was a really lovely story, and it's so important to share with donors. I can, picture the situation. We've all been on the outside of something where we weren't sure that we should participate, but with a little bit of encouragement, it's something that we find that we really love. And I think this would be a really good piece to share with existing donors or in a newsletter or email. And the reason I say existing is, I'll get to that here. I think that there might be a couple pieces missing to make me motivated as a new donor towards the end there. So I think that I would modify a little bit for kind of throwing it out there to the community so you can get new donors. I think if you apply Rachel's framework, what's missing to me, or at least it's not clear enough, is what is your obstacle in this story? What makes it so necessary that you need my support as a donor? If it's the pandemic, which it sounds like it might be, you kind of throw that in there, that's what stopped our classes. You mentioned that it's time for services to begin. So the pandemic is kind of over for you, not over, I hate saying that, but it's no longer affecting you. So do you need my support to help you And I didn't check. Emily, are you on the call here? We can always unmute you too. I
don't see her.
No, okay. That's okay. So we're missing that obstacle that really makes us want to donate. So I would kind of change those bookends of your introduction and closing to make it a little bit clearer. For example, in the beginning, we might want to say in the story that the Awakening Minds Art believes that everyone can find success and hope through visual art. So, that's a clear vision that applies to this story. And then we tell the story about Barb and how it affected her and how our organization helped her. And then at the end, we'll add in the obstacle about the pandemic, closing us down with the call to action. So we can say something like, with the pandemic, we have to find a new, safer way of reaching these vulnerable populations. And we're really relying on caring, creative donors like you to ensure that people like Barb continue to have opportunities to express themselves through art. And then the call to action can be something like, will you help Barb? I think that as someone who isn't already giving to the organization might motivate me a little bit more than just the story as it's framed already. I think this is still excellent to share with people who are already supporters of your organization, and you don't necessarily need to have that obstacle because they're already fans of yours and they just want to know about those Barbs that you're helping. So Carol mentioned AMA, Awakening Minds Art, closed their physical doors during the pandemic. I would focus on asking for help to restart the programs. That's so good. I think that's a great point. I remember them saying, that they were going to operate in facilities still, but they were closing down their hub. And I think that really probably negatively impacted all of those youth students that they had who would come to their location for their program. So if we're focusing on the pandemic as your obstacle, we could also segment that as a different story and say, here's our Barb story, and people who might really want to know about our work in the assisted living centers and nursing homes. Well, here's another story about our Johnnies or whoever who are youth, maybe 25 and younger or something like that, who really, for donors who want to support those coming into our facilities because we get to close them due to the pandemic. So great point. I think that would also be a fantastic story. Anybody else on this one? If there's any other feedback too, I'd love to reach out to Emily via email so she gets some of these things. That's an excellent point, Heather. If you have a Barb like this, someone who wouldn't really mind being on camera, this could be a great video. Just being able to see someone who physically can't hold a paintbrush because of their tremors, working through with your staff on being able to create visual art. I think this would be really impactful as a video as well. And that's important to keep in mind. All of our stories, they don't have to be written stories. We can use different mediums to tell our stories. In fact, for the right channels, video is better sometimes than a printed piece with words or a website or things like that. So it's important to consider those too. So I hear someone's mic. Is someone talking? Tiffany said, I wonder if you could have a picture in the background of Barb being assisted as she paints. Also a great point. I don't know what piece this was intended for. Emily didn't say what she would plan on using the story for, but I think this would go great with an image of Barb, just doing exactly what you're saying in the story. Okay, so now I'm going to shift over to some of the other submissions we got, and I'm going to have to read them alongside with you. So let me pull those up. I'll have to change what I'm sharing here. Okay, so here we have an appeal letter. And let's see, who is this one from? Sorry, I have so many windows I have to move. So the appeal letter, that one is from Melissa here. And Melissa is coming from, let's see, is that the Manahan, am I saying that right? The Serving Adults with Developmental Disabilities? Yes, okay, good. So let's take a look here.
Size of the document with the slider bar at the bottom.
What was that? Can you say that again?
The slider bar at the bottom, can you increase the size of the document so it's a little
Yes.
easier?
All right, how about that? Can you read that?
A little more.
Okay.
I've got old eyeballs.
And some people might be on little screens too. So I'll scroll down with you. Hopefully it's not too fast or anything. Let me know if I'm going too fast, but I'll be reading this alongside with you. So just let me know. And Melissa said she doesn't have a camera or mic, so that's okay. You can keep doing this through chat.
I unmuted you, Melissa, if you want to talk.
Okay, I just want to address something that Denise said right before this about the last story, that they could include a sample of her beautiful artwork. That would be a really great idea too. I didn't think of something like that, so good idea. Okay, so if you had a chance to read through that, we can kind of get back to it and we'll talk about what we see here. I really liked this story. I think that you framed it really well. Clearly your obstacle is the pandemic, and you're looking for support to kind of support some of the things that are losing, I guess, their value, their life, now that people are using them a little bit more. So you're looking for 3 new bikes, have that cost, and living room furniture, about $10,000 per resident. So I like how you're saying that because of COVID-19, first of all, I'm glad to hear that you're still keeping up with things, that you have all of these activities for everybody. But I like to see that you kind of connected those to your story. I mean, people are spending more time in their rooms, and so you need new furniture. And people are not really going to specific locations, so you're really enjoying time on the bikes, but the bikes are rusty. So I love that you were able to connect that to your story. Let's see. Bring smiles and laughter to our residents as they ride around campus, and comfort as they watch TV and play games. I just think you did a great job. I think that I'm kind of mixed mind on including the value of the items. I think that's great because you might get a donor who might write that $2,500 check, but maybe if someone's not at that level, they might worry that you're not accepting support at this time. So I'm kind of waffling on the general ask versus the specific ask that you have here. So you might be able to specifically ask some people, but maybe just saying that you're looking for new bikes and living room furniture, kind of as a general idea. You have maybe put the dollar amounts on the reply card. Yeah, I think so. So if you have like the reply card there, maybe you have some giving level, but then you also specifically say, I want to donate a bike, and then you have the $2,500. Or I would like to donate one full living room worth of furniture, and that's $10,000. I think you could absolutely have that. And then Carol says, this request sounds like it's targeted to a major gift ask. I would agree, since there is that $10,000 on there. ask a smaller annual fund donor the cost of the bikes and the furniture would seem daunting to me. So yeah, that's very much in line with that. So I think it just depends on who your target is. If this is an annual appeal letter, you might want to break it down and just say that you're looking to fund bikes and living room furniture specifically, and not have that cost, or like we said, have that kind of broken out as an option on the card. Heather says, does anyone use different formats for annual appeals versus a letter? That's a great question. So in my own experience, we've done annual appeals. So when I worked at the University of Findlay, we used multiple channels for our annual appeals, whether that was via email or a letter. In fact, in Findlay, I don't know if it's the same around here in Toledo, having not been in a nonprofit here in Toledo. People love their mailers. It was so weird that they would respond specifically to their mail, but everything else would fall flat. So I always thought that was interesting when I worked at the university. But yeah, we often would use different formats and then try to see which one was successful based off of who gave and what did we send them, or did they click on a link from our email. And then Tiffany says you can target monthly donors to break the ask down into smaller chunks. That makes it more accessible to donors. That's a great idea. Actually, Rachel talked about that recurring monthly donation, and maybe that's something that would work for some of these. If you were to say to some of your annual donors that a monthly gift of, now you're making me do math again. So that would be, is that $50 a month? No, that sounds wrong, but 233, thank you. An annual gift a monthly gift would allow you to buy a bike. So I appreciate doing the math. I'm terrible on the fly with math. I swear I went to college. And then Heather also said, this one seems particularly suited for an infographic style rack card. Yeah, that would really good. I think that you'd have some great images of what's going on with your populations. I'd love to see what the living room looks like for them. That would really, if it's really shabby, I would say don't be embarrassed, share that, and people would be like, oh yeah, I can see that your couch is falling apart. I'd love to give you money for a new couch. So I wouldn't shy away from images on this one. Let's see, Melissa, this will be a self-mailer, so a different size than a letter to hopefully get more attention. Okay, and then 208.33, perfect. Glad to know exactly what that breaks out to. Heather says, easy to create on Canva, free version and discounts for nonprofits. Yeah, and I believe, did Rachel mention Canva in the last before? So I think you definitely have some options. And honestly, I think you did a really good job telling the story in a way that made me understand your ask. It's certainly not the most emotional thing in the world, but that's okay. We can't all have Hail Marys. If we're making our donors cry every single time, they might get a little tired of that. So I think that this was a great story for the type of ask you're making. Okay, anybody else have some other comments on this one? And then we'll move on to the other submission that we have here. Jesse Stock says include equipment has to meet the physical needs of the user. Oh yeah, if there are any special needs for the bikes, and that could also increase your cost too, so you definitely want to make that notable, or if you have to buy specialized furniture for anybody, any of the populations that you serve, I think that would be a great thing to include. Okay, so let's jump to the other one. See, I always forget how to change sharing. Okay. So this is, let's see, is this one page? This one's from Sue Berryman. We have one page here, a letter asking us to see the story. So we'll do exactly what we did before. I'll zoom all the way in here and we will all read together. Okay, Sue, I've allowed you to be unmuted if you would like, but that's up to you. The chat's fine as well. So what I love about this is your intro right away. I mean, I love that. If you grew up in Northwest Ohio, sadly, there will be no field trips this year, and that just made me sad right away. I mean, I remember when I was in school, for some reason, we had a year where we just weren't allowed to take any field trips, and I felt so slighted that we weren't able to go. And I'm sure a lot of students are feeling that right now with closings across the board. So I thought that was a great opening, and it's very clear that your obstacle is the pandemic on this one. Let's see. And you really make it clear what you guys went through, what your team's working on, but how can you serve your community still? I think that second paragraph is still really strong, letting people know that you're not out of the fight yet. You're still going to have options for everyone. And I really laughed at the Hayes was a U.S. president after all. I really like that. Here's where you add in a lot of numbers here, and I'm kind of similarly, we talked about this before. I'm in two minds. It's good to know what you're asking for. I like that you broke it out for the new virtual education programs, 25 acres of Spiegel Grove, and the manuscripts. But I'm not sure that you need to share the $120,000. To me, that almost seems like a campaign. And when I think of campaigns, there's usually the silent phase. This probably isn't quite such a big scale thing. But you rarely share the amount just in case you don't make it. Because people are going to want to know. They're going to want that feedback and that follow-up later. Hey, I donated to your goal of $120,000 for Gateway to the Future. Did you make it? Did you get there? So they're going to want that follow-up if you provide that number. And if you think you're confident on getting it there, and you want to provide that follow-up, leave it on there. I mean, it's okay to have a goal, but I think by including that, you're going to have people who want accountability there. Heather says, for those bigger ticket items, it would be fun to create a gift registry to break it down into smaller components or cost. Oh, that's true. I mean, especially with like the manuscripts, books, and research materials, or maybe I can fund a tree. When I worked at the university, when they opened a new business, it was the business building. They opened a new building. They had tree planting right out there on the lawn. So that's something that you could do. It might cost a little bit more to have those plaques on each tree, but you can kind of build that into what the cost of a tree would be. So I think that's a fantastic idea, and will really help people cover some of those costs. And then we get to the closing here. What makes this year different? So I think it's good to tell everyone what the impact of the pandemic was for. I think it gets into the little nitty gritty there with what the deficit was and how you made it up. I don't know if I were a donor if I would question that much. And then I think that might even give me more questions to ask. I as a librarian and working for businesses and nonprofits, know what the Payroll Protection Act alone was. But that's okay. You don't have a mic. You can just keep the chat on there. But I don't know if every donor would. And so they might see that as Payroll Protection Act loan. Well, you got a loan, so that you're going to have to pay that back. So you actually have that to worry about and all that interest. They may not know that there's a big portion of that you actually will be forgiven. So that might be a little bit too much detail for donors, but it is great to tell them what happened, where the revenue was lost. You were closed for 3 months. So I think part of that I would keep, maybe change it around a little bit. Melissa said, I was just typing the same feedback about the PPP loan. Okay, so good. It's good to know that other people are kind of on the same page there, that it might just be too much for your donors. I was just reading a book that said, we give donors too much credit sometimes. We think that they want to know as much as we know and that they care as much as we care, but they just want to care that you're using their money correctly. So sometimes we want to give them too much information. But I think ending it though, you've got a good call to action. Will you join us? Whatever the future holds, we want to be ready. That's a great way to address what's going on. We have no clue what's next. We hope we do, but it could be a number of things. So I think that overall this is great. I love Heather's suggestion of being able to maybe on the appeal card that you might include on this to have some breakouts of the cost so that I might cover one tree, I might buy a tree and maybe I'll name it for somebody. And then I would maybe play around with that second part of this paragraph right here. But otherwise, I think you did a great job, Sue. I think this is a really good appeal, especially for the pandemic. You're not belaboring the point that the pandemic really ruined your plans, but you have hope for the future and you're on track. So fantastic. So at this point, I'm going to say, let's take a break. So we're over halfway. We do go until noon. So everyone, get your coffee, take your bathroom breaks. We're going to switch gears here in the second half and talk about where to take your stories next. And I'll show you a tool that we have here at the library. So let's do maybe a 5-minute break should be good. So 11:16.
Well, let's be brave and say 11:20.
Okay, we'll do 11:20. You might have bathrooms far away like I do, so.
Okay, 11:20. Zach, I feel like we need some mood music or something.
When we took a webinar on how to use Zoom, which is funny, it was a webinar on how to do a webinar. It showed us how to just share music via our computer, and I always just want to do that now, just like have some background music go.
It's 11:20, so welcome back. As we have been fond of saying since all the COVID happened and we're all dealing with different things, it's all a grand experiment. So Zach and I taught ourselves how to do polls today on Zoom. And so I want to stop sharing. Sorry. Launch polling. Okay. Can you see that on the screen, Zach, or no?
I see it. It just says test poll question, though.
Launch polling. Okay, carry on, Zach.
Hey, it's all part of the experiment.
And so I'll check some things behind the scenes. Carry on.
So this next part is we're going to talk about what to do with your story now that you have it, or you've been working on it, or you plan on working on it, any of those things. I'm not going to go too in-depth with a lot of this because you'll get more from Tom Ahern later on if you sign up for the classes. But I just want to touch base so you know that you're thinking about it. At this point, though, I'm going to jump into this building a communications calendar, but feel free to, in the chat, to let me know how you plan on using your story. But this is kind of just a basic building block for a nonprofit communications calendar. Too many nonprofits believe that our good works just mysteriously makes it out into the real world and without much effort on our part. So this is a calendar built by Rick Schwartz, and an accomplished public relations practitioner. He specializes in nonprofits. And he developed this as an easy method for compiling a calendar for press releases and donor communications. So basically, this is actually not the most basic version of it, but you would start with what would be basic for your nonprofit, which could be a crowd-pleasing publication every quarter, or you start planning your newsletters 1 month ahead, or your annual reports 2 months ahead. So just start filling those in for what works for your organization. And then you fill in your newsletters, and those can come in any shape or size. But newsletters are the glue that keeps your organization's members or friends in close contact with you. So you might not feel it's super important to put it out there, but it really keeps everybody engaged, whether they're your supporter or not. So it's important to get those stories to them, even if it's just an update on what's going on. Every nonprofit has at least something to share once a month. If you're not doing anything to share, then maybe you kind of need to go back to the drawing board and kind of question, what are you doing if you have nothing to share once a month? So those basic building blocks you can start working on. And your annual report should only be done once a year, but that's really a chance to show your audience and all of them and everything you've achieved in 12 months. So if you aren't doing an annual report, that's an opportunity. You're missing out on storytelling with a bigger picture focus. 2 more essential items that you can add in would be a press release and your e-news. Nonprofits shouldn't hope that media will pick up on everything that you're doing just by accident, or maybe they heard through the grapevine that you're doing a program or a good thing for the community. But you have to tell them. When I worked at the Arts Partnership, part of my job was to keep our media list current. And it's actually kind of a hard task, because when it comes time to send out your media, if you haven't stayed on top of it, you're going to get a bunch of bounce backs, because people in the journalism world, the media world, they have a lot of turnover for one reason or another. So you're going to get bounce backs if you don't stay on top of it. It's kind of a lot of work, surprisingly. It's not just getting someone's email and keeping it on there forever and you're good to go. So there's a lot of change going on in that industry. But those could be the basic building blocks for you that you can easily keep on top of, I would say. And as your organization increases capacity or size, then you can add in some of the other items. And I kind of say that with the warning, because having gone from a nonprofit of 4 people to a university setting, it actually became harder to stay on top of what was going out there, because everybody is in charge of everything else. And so you want to know what's going out there to your donors, but you can't keep track of. I was a donor relations professional, so I couldn't keep track of what annual giving was sending out. I couldn't keep track of what the individual gift officers were sending to their donors. So once you get to a certain point, it actually becomes harder to stay on top of this. But I think there's a sweet spot where you might have a little bit more control, but also have the capacity to do more. So you could add in things like editorial meetings with your local media, public presentations with your chamber or Rotary or Kiwanis or another group similar to that. And then you want to add in your donor programs. When I was working for a small nonprofit, getting those in there, of course we were event-based anyway, so adding in more events was always challenging. But it can be hard to plan those and get those in there with just such few staff. But it is important. I think it's important to lean on your board with that too. And they don't always have to be these big mixers with the music and almost like a gala. It can be a lecture. You can go to invite them to a panel discussion, and the panelists are either your staff or people in your field to talk about the good work that you're doing. And just to make sure that there's 10 to 25 donors there. Have some of your board host cocktail parties or something like that, where there's less people, but it's a little bit more intimate, and it's a no solicitation event. So no one's asking for money then, but it welcomes people into your organization to hear that story in person. Maybe you have someone there that's in your story, whether it's a child or maybe I don't know if you can get a Barb there. Maybe she can't leave the home, but someone in your story that could represent it for you instead of you just telling it all the time. And then maybe they'll become donors. If you're a larger organization, consider adding in a donor appreciation event. I have mixed feelings about those when I had to do it at the university. And it was tough because try teaching 20-year-olds, 18-year-olds to care about donors at a university, and you'll find a lot of blank faces. And so I appreciated the event for our donors, but it was certainly hard to manage for the people we were trying to get to sign thank you letters or create video messages. So they can be challenging, but worth it. And if you have enough capacity to do a direct mail campaign, I think a lot of you probably do that in some capacity anyway, whether that's just your annual mailing for support. But consider maybe segmenting those like we've been talking about, sending them a couple times a year to different people and really see and monitor the results and see what sticks. So I say at this point, if you're working on your stories, now it's time to work on how you're going to get those stories out there and into the public. So how do you get your story out there if you don't have anyone to send it to? So I kind of want to just touch on prospecting a little bit. I'm going to show you a tool here we have at the library to find people. But I am going to give the caveat that I'm probably one of the few people out there who say that bulk mailing is sometimes worth it. You'll hear a lot of people saying, don't do bulk mailing, it's not worth it. But if you've hit a wall and you found your supporters already through natural means and contacts, it's okay to prospect the traditional way with bulk mailing. You're going to get a low response rate, but if you have good rates of, I guess, if you don't have a lot of attrition, that's what I want to say, and you keep those donors, then there is value in that. If you only get 0.5 to 2% response rate on a bulk mailer, well, you can keep those people for a long time. Then, over time, it is definitely worth it. And the tool that I'll show you is going to help lower the cost of that. But before I jump into finding bulk addresses, I do want to make sure that you are aware of how to find people in your own networks already. So you may have seen this before. It's just, the classic treasure mapping for prospects, where you and your board and your staff really sit down and come up with people in your networks already to share your story with, and maybe they'll turn into donors. So this is people in your personal network or your professional network, and that could be people at work, at your church, any clubs that you're in. If you are working with any foundations, absolutely share your stories with them. I think people are apprehensive to work with foundations sometimes if they're not getting any grants at the time. But no, if you share your story with any of these stakeholders, they're going to be much more likely to support you in the future because they'll understand you a little bit better. You can't always get a full picture of an organization from a grant proposal. So definitely keep them in the loop. Other people that you work with professionally, your family and friends, vendors that you work with, if you and your board can identify 7 people each, and you have a board of 10 people, I mean, that's 70 people that you're sharing your story with that could become supporters ultimately. So don't be afraid to use your personal network. So I'm actually going to share a different screen here and show you what the library has for prospecting. This is one of my favorite tools for for-profit businesses and for nonprofit businesses that you can use a couple different ways. So you should be seeing our website right now, the library's website. If you're not, let me know. This is the grant and nonprofit support page. So if you didn't know this existed, it's important for you to keep that in mind because we have a lot of tools here. We do have a great database for searching for grants and a bunch of other databases that I'm not going to cover right now, but great tools in here. Take a look sometime. I'm going to go down to one of our databases called Reference USA. And if you're in the library, you don't need to log in with your card. If you're out of the library, you would use a library card to log in. And just so you know, anybody in the state of Ohio who works or lives here can get a library card with us. You don't have to live in Lucas County to get one. You can get one online. It's very easy. You don't have to come in person to get one. So I encourage you, if you don't have one, sign up and you'll have access to all of our tools. So there are a couple things I want to highlight on here. The first one is going to be this this part of the database right here, U.S. consumers and lifestyles, and then U.S. businesses right here. I'm also going to touch on this real quick, but in a second. So let's go to the U.S. consumer lifestyle database here. And the important part is just to show you what it can do. If you are ever interested in more of a tutorial, I absolutely offer one-on-ones with this, but I just want you to know how powerful it can be. So I click on advanced search because that's where all the fun stuff is. So you can use this database to pull a mailing list or even a phone list. It does have landlines on it, but less and less people have landlines. So you're going to get less information that way, but you can get anyone's address. And it's very reliable information. And you can search by location. You can search by even some other factors that might help you in your prospecting. So you can do home value, estimated home income, and then some other lifestyle things. So let me show you just by kind of building a quick list here. So if I'm a nonprofit, and let's say that I serve people in Lucas County, and I just want just that general county, I would add that in there, select Ohio as our state, and then find Lucas County down here. And then I like to update after each piece of information just so I can make sure it's being taken into account. So now we have 475,000 people who are living in Lucas County, Ohio. Okay, that's a lot. You're not going to mail that many people, but this is just for an example. So what else can we add? So we want to get donations. So let's find someone who is probably of an income level that we usually associate with our donors. And you can solicit anybody, but we really want to find those people who are predisposed to give to an organization. So let's do maybe 150 as 125 to 150 as our base income, and we can actually highlight all of the other incomes down on there. So we don't want to exclude any rich people. All right, and we'll update that. So now we have 184,000. Again, just looking, I'm never going to encourage you to mail to 184,000 people. And then we can add a lifestyle to it. So you can see this consumer snapshot down here. You can look at this information, but you won't be able to pull a mailing list from this information. But you can certainly analyze the data and see who is in your service area who might fit some of these things via income or political party or gender or any of those things, but you won't be able to pull a list. But you can pull a list from lifestyles. So from here, I can see already that there's a charitable donor on here. So this is people who have some sort of record of being a charitable donor, and I'm going to update the count. So now we're down to 25,000. Maybe I'm an organization who I'm animal rescue or I'm conservation. So I'm going to click pets and animals as another interest. It actually went up because it's actually going to bring back people who were filtered out. So this is not an or situation, it's an and situation. So it's going to be all the people from these incomes in Lucas County who are either a charitable donor, or I guess it's an or situation, or a pet lover. So it does add them in, it doesn't subtract. So now we're at 29,000. So I could keep going. I could keep adding things in there. I could add a neighborhood or a street address. What's nice is you can also do a map-based search, so I can just drop a pin on a map and define how far I want the region to extend, or I can draw the map, which sometimes might work better for some people with some strange service areas. But then I'm going to click on the results. So these are all people who met my criteria, and you can see I now have their phone number if they have a landline, not cell phone number. This database does not have cell phone numbers, and their mailing address. You can also filter out if you only want one per household, because you see on here I've got 3 people here of the same household. So we can filter out just to do one, but if we click on their profile, we can see some of their information. So this individual, we have their address, they're a female, married, how long they've lived in their home, some estimated household income, the cost of their house. So this is a great prospecting tool to even look at for individuals that you might have come across. But you can see some of these things. People always want to know where this comes from. A lot of this comes from any magazines that they've purchased or some websites that they may have purchased from. It just has their general interest, which again can really help with prospecting. However, this is by household. So this address is associated with all of these things. So if I'm looking at one person, maybe this doesn't apply to them, but it applies to their households, maybe their spouse or a child who still lives in the home. If we go back, and again, this is 29,000 people, but if I want to get this information, then I would click download. Well, I would have to click on everybody first. So you can download 10 pages at a time. It can be frustrating, but it prevents some data mining, it protects data a little bit. So we would do 250 of these names, which is 10 pages, and I would download it. And I could download it in Excel. And then from there, I can easily pull a mail merge. So I now have a list that I didn't have to pay for. That's pretty reliable, that I can do a mail merge, maybe print a postcard, and for pretty cheap, just do a quick mailing. And it doesn't have to be a solicitation. Maybe you just want to find people who are interested in your nonprofit, so you can send them maybe a quick survey and they can win an Amazon gift card or something like that if they fill out your survey. Or you can invite them to an event you're throwing that you want the community to come to. So a couple ways to use this that's beyond just solicitation that you might find beneficial for your organization. So let me go back to the very first page that we were on here. So that was the U.S. consumer lifestyle business. So it's going to be kind of the same when you click on businesses, but you can use this differently because you might segment your solicitations differently for a business. So you might have an individual campaign, you might have a business campaign for those corporate donations. You can also pull a list on businesses, and this data I know is very reliable because this database is who supplies Google Maps, so they're held to at least a 95% accuracy standard. And we can pick different industry groups. So if you know that, you can also use this to find vendors too, not just donors. If we know that we resonate really well with a particular industry, we can go through here and find that. Or maybe we really think a bank might want to sponsor one of our events because we're educating people on personal finance. So we can maybe just pick financial institutions, and we can pick them by location. You can even do a little bit more with this one. So you can look for who's the head of their organization. You can search by their name, their title, their gender, or their ethnicity. I've helped people find maybe doctors through this way, so that people might want to just personally have like a female doctor that they're more relatable to it than a male. So you can use this tool for a number of things. And you can also limit by size of the organization with the number of employees or their sales volume. So it's a great way to pull a list of businesses, and I'm sure you can all think of maybe 3 other ways that you can use this. But it's great, it's reliable, and I think it can really help you prospect for businesses. The last thing that I wanted to show you on this database is it's the U.S. New Movers and Homeowners. Now, it's essentially going to be the same kind of database as the one we looked at first, U.S. Consumer Lifestyles. But what's nice about this is anyone that's moved to a particular home in the last 6 months. So you would filter out the same way we did first, but you can find a little bit more information about when they moved into their home and how much they purchased it for. So if you're an organization that is really beneficial to someone that might be new to your community, and you want to reach out to them, you could send postcards to everyone that moves into your community every 6 months, and then they'll know about your organization. Whether that's maybe it's an arts organization, you want them to really know about you because you offer some entertainment value to them or something along those lines. So great opportunity to reach out to the new people in your community. So like I said, I could do one-on-ones with this. I just wanted to let you know the powerful tool that this is and everything that it can do. You have my email address, so feel free to reach out to me if you want to learn more about how to use this database. But this is one of our favorite tools for both for-profit businesses finding customers and nonprofits finding people to solicit to. Heather asked, is there a database or filter for nonprofits? There is, but it's not reliable. Let me see if I can find it. I think it was under one of these industry groups. Let me try it up here. I can just do a search right there, profit. So there is this option here for nonprofits, but like I said, it's not the most reliable because sometimes organizations serves nonprofits will pop up. Many of you might be familiar with the local group Atlee Sterling Philanthropy, who are their consultants, and so I know they subscribe to this tag. So let me just do a quick search and see what happens when I do that for Lucas County.
Request we get at the center, lists of nonprofits, or if people want to research other nonprofits that are doing similar work in the area.
Yeah, well, we can see what comes up. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've done this particular search. Okay, so yeah, we know that there are like several thousand in Lucas County, and it's only showing me 176.
Okay.
So there are some on here, but it's not quite very reliable. So this is more for profits, I think. So let me jump back to the PowerPoint. That's the tool I wanted to show you. We have a couple other tools if you ever want to just reach out to me. We have another database that does a little bit more in-depth information on people, but it's less reliable, so I don't like to show it as often. But we have it. And then there is another tool called DS Giving. It's not part of the library, where you can look up some individuals and see if they've given to other nonprofits. Really useful on high-level donors, not so useful on just regular donors, but it is out there. I'd be happy to show that to you for prospecting. So these are the people you can tell your story to. Sorry for the deviation, but I really thought that would be a valuable tool for all of you. And let me switch over to the PowerPoint. Okay. So getting close to the end here. So I just wanted to touch base with you and just make sure that you know about a case for support. It's kind of the next step for storytelling. I could do an entire program on, maybe not me, but I'm sure there could be an entire program for case for support out there. But it's just the ultimate story of your organization. So I just want you to consider that as an option going forward. So let me, I have a box in the way here. A case for support really just tells the whole story of your organization. It's essentially an inspiring tale that answers all the questions the donor might have. It's a written document, it's printed. I've seen some shorter ones. I see a number of recommendations that it could be 10 to 15 pages, whatever works for you. It really just has to answer the questions the donor might have, and it's very helpful in a campaign. It can be, I think I worked on a board where it was just like a 4-page spread. It was really mostly just pictures and designs, so it might not have been the best one, but it was shorter. But it essentially answers these 6 compelling questions. Who are you? Why do you exist? What's distinctive about you? What is it that you want to accomplish, and why does that matter? How do you intend to accomplish it, and how will you hold yourself accountable? So that is a story. It's a story about your organization. It's the stories that you're doing for your populations. And I just wanted to put that out there for you to think about for the future, to start building a case for support. It does take a while. It takes planning. We have some resources here in book form that can help. Tom Ahern, in one of his books, I believe, actually outlines a way for you to do it in just one meeting. So probably a long meeting, but you can do it. And then finally, I just wanted to recommend some books that we have here at the library for you to check out on donor communications. You'll notice that, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them have Tom Ahern's name. So I guess I can't recommend enough that you try to attend his upcoming classes. But we have a few others on there. All of them you can get through us at the library here. Other than that, that's all I had for you. So there's my contact information. If you want to reach out to me here at the library and go over any of those things, or anything that you see on the grants page that we have that you might have questions about, I am always here for calls or even one-on-one appointments. So thank you so much for joining us on this. Heather, I don't know if you want to talk about Tom's program or anything else coming up.
Yeah, I had mentioned it at the top. You can find that on our website, c4npr.org, but you know about that if you've registered for this class.
Very true.
In the series, so 2 instructional and then 1 intensive. I also want to mention, and perhaps you want to speak a little to this, Zach. During COVID, and some of you have participated, we created a space on Tuesday mornings called Nonprofit Hello, to help people to be able to re-engage, connect, and try and sort through what was happening. So we've posted those through the summer, and now we're refreshing that. And the first thing that we're starting with, Zach is helping us with. So we're going to do a book club. So Zach, do you want to talk a little bit about the book that you've selected?
Yes, and someone pointed out very correctly that my phone number has an extra number in it, so I'm typing it in here real quick. It is 214 in the middle, not 2314, because that's impossible. So there is my number there in the chat. So yeah, the book club, I'm really excited about that because I've only been here at the library for just over a year, but it's been something I really wanted to bring to the community. Was a nonprofit book discussion, and the first one is going to be about grants. It's called The Only Grant Writing Book You'll Ever Need, so it's a very self-serving title, but it's a very easy read. For as far as non-narrative nonfiction goes, and it covers really everything from the most basic to the more complicated questions that I've ever gotten here at the library. And I think it's really important if you are a grant writer, want to be a grant writer, you haven't really had the chance to branch out, but you think your organization might need grants coming up with all the issues going on with funding in this COVID world we live in. I say come join us. If you don't have time to read the book, that's okay. Still come join us. You can learn, you can talk. We're going to have more experienced people there talking about what they've gone through. So I'm just excited to have this opportunity. And if you'll really enjoy it, we'll keep going with some other topics in the future with other books.
So if you're like me, and I honestly don't read very quickly, the book review is actually divided into 3 sections. I think over 5 weeks, there's a week between, Zach, is that right?
Yeah, it's about 2 weeks between, so it'll be about 120-ish pages per section, and you don't have to come to each section if certain areas pertain to you more. So the first one is Prerequisites, so it's really those foundational blocks of learning about how to find grants, learning about foundations, and getting that stuff covered. And then the second section is about writing the grant, and the third section is about follow-up and reporting, and it has the appendices in the back, which will cover some templates and things like that. So they're three very different sections that I think you should be able to pick and choose what you want to attend.
Yeah. So if that's something of interest to you, please join us. And Zach and I recorded a C4NPR chat earlier this week. It'll be going up as a blog post with a link and all the resources. And also, of course, everyone on this call is subscribed to our e-news, right? Because that's where we make all of our announcements, and a link to the C4NPR chat will be in there as well. One other thing I just wanted to highlight, I'm so excited that the Toledo-Lucas County Public Library could influence this. The Foundation Directory Online went virtual during COVID, and they have extended that access through December 31st, which I think is great. The only thing you need is access to the internet and a library card. So I think that's wonderful that no longer do you have to trek down to the main library to access it. And I don't know, who knows? Maybe that'll be a permanent change that Candid/GuideStar will make available going forward. So there will, Mandy had asked, yes, there will be a replay of this digitally, so you can go back. Poor Mandy, I think she had a fire alarm and some other distractions that happened in the middle of this. But yes, you can replay that. And Zach, if you can send me the PowerPoint slides, I will also include that. So thank you very much, everyone. Of course, if you've been with us, you know that we are seeking feedback from you. We do send out an evaluation, and we read every single thing and shape our decisions based on your feedback going forward. Oh, that reminds me. You're also going to see an announcement shortly that we've engaged a market research firm to help us understand the needs of the nonprofit sector, especially now post-COVID. So please watch for that invitation. Fill it. It's not a very long survey, but it's a critical survey, and we will be shaping our service model based on the feedback that we get. So I think that's it. Thank you, everyone, for participating. And Zach, thank you for leading us through this discussion. Have a great day.
Thanks. I enjoyed it, everyone. Thank you.